1, 2. All right. 3, 4. Hey, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Hey, how many of you here for the first time tonight? Wow. Well, thank you for coming. How many of you know why you're here tonight? Even the first timers know why, huh? Hey, tonight's going to be a lot about why you're here and why this is put on. And I'm going to introduce our speaker here just in a second. You know, this ministry, it's actually a ministry. It's called Influencers of the Central Coast. Okay? It's non-denominational. It's just Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Okay? It's all of you might go to 100 different churches around here, and that's great because everybody's welcome. And the other men that are welcome too, or some that maybe have never been to church or never would want to go step in one, and that's fine. Okay. And I'm not saying this is church, but you know what? It kind of is. That's how Jesus started a church, right? In homes. That's how they do it in China now, too, is what they tell me. I've never been there. Take their word for it. But like I said, it's influencers of the Central Coast, and our speaker tonight is going to give a little history on influencers. It's actually a global ministry and for men. And he's going to talk about that a little bit, and he's from Bakersfield. And he's got a couple of testimonies for you. This is a testimony based. It's you know, where a man has been and before he was broken, and then found Jesus. And we all have stories. Every one of you sitting here at these tables have a story. There's not one of you that doesn't have one.
Amen.
And if you don't have one, you're going to get one. Okay? That's just the way it works.
Make one up.
But I just love this ministry, and because it is for men, and I just believe that God calls us to be the leaders of our homes. And He doesn't call us to follow our wives around. And I know sometimes we do that, sometimes we have to do that, sometimes I do that. I'm not saying I don't, not saying I'm perfect. But you know, when Satan is after somebody, what's he go after? He goes after the marriage. Because if he gets the marriage, he gets the dad, he gets the mom, and he gets all the kids, and then poof, it's done, it's over. And that's why we're here tonight, and that's why this ministry exists, and that's why it's here now on the Central Coast. And I just feel like this year, as we move into these, you know, what's the most important that we want to stress tonight, we do a weekly journey groups, and they meet for 1 hour. And they're going to start in the end of March, first part of April. And you're going to hear us if you continue to come back to the Monday night M6s. You know, we're going to push to that because we can all come out and have a good time and have a great meal, and that's great. And we want to continue to do that, but we're here so that you can have a closer relationship with Jesus Christ and to know what that is. Because a lot of guys have been going to church for a long time and still don't know what that is. You know. You can't go once a week, you know. Can you see go to work once a week and keep your job? Can you see your wife once a week, your kids once a week, and keep that relationship going for an extended period of time? Not so much. So that's why we do these journey groups, and we'll talk more about that later. But that's what we do. That's what this is. That is the DNA of influencers, is abiding in Christ and just come in close proximity with Him, and how to do that as a man in this world. And it isn't sometimes the easiest thing to do, but if you don't know how to do it, or you're not around other men that kind of can help you along, you know, it doesn't matter where you've been or how much further you have to go. It's how far are you going to come? You're going to take that first step, and we believe we have a proven way through the journey. That's totally Bible-based, and that can help you with your own personal story, and how to take that story and turn it into a triumph and into a victory, and to lead your family, and lead your wife, and lead your kids. It doesn't matter if you have a broken family. You know, God can do amazing, amazing things. You'll hear a couple testimonies about some testimonies tonight that'll affirm that. But anyway, I'd like to introduce before I do, I just want to say thank you to Michael Stevens and Tanner Jacks for that wonderful dinner that he did tonight. Steve is going to be with us throughout this whole year. He's committed to cook for us every month, and that's his service and gift to us. You might wonder, how is all this paid for? It's all paid for by men like you that believe in this ministry. All right, it is a 501c3 ministry. There's no salaries or anything like that involved, but just so you know that it's legit, and it's men like you that want to stand up and come and say, hey, I'd like to support this thing. And as you see, as we go and you keep coming back and go to them journey groups, I can just tell you that's just going to happen. So this isn't some kind of sales pitch, but I'm just telling you, it is what it is, and I'm pretty black and white. So that's what it is. All right. So also, Greg from Doc Bernstein's was as soon as we're done at 7:30 or so, we're going to have root beer floats with Doc Bernstein's ice cream back there in the back. And he does that every month. Okay. So at this time, I'd like to have Les Piercy come up. And Les, I've known Les for 4 years or 5, and we become very close friends. And he runs the influencers ministry in Bakersfield, and like I said, is going to give you a little history of that and tell you a little better from the man himself of just what influencers is. And I love this man, and he's touched so many men's lives in the Central Valley that I can't count them, including mine. This what we're talking about, the journey groups, the weekly. It changed my life. I don't know if I'd still be standing here. I know I wouldn't have my family. I know I wouldn't have my wife if it wasn't for that when I went in there. Of course, all credit to God. Amen. Through what it was. But it saved my life, and that's why I'm so passionate about it, and that's why I want every one of you sitting here, not just to come to M6s, but to come to the M42s. Even if you think your life is perfect, because nobody's perfect. And there's no masks at the M42 journey group, just like there's no masks here tonight. We're all real men chasing after a real God, even if you don't know God, because I didn't know him, and I do now, and I just want to share it. Anyway, here is Mr. Les Piercy.
I think we're done, don't you? I mean, that was good. No, Brian, I'm going to have you stand up. I got out of the truck today, and I met Brian. Brian, is this your first time here? Yeah, I get out of the truck, and he says, hey, is it your first time here? And I went, no, I've been here once before. And so, Brian, where is Mr. Lohr, the guy who invited you? Come on. Where's John Lohr? Okay, right there. Okay, so John, okay, high five to you, because what this is about, guys, is a man like John caring enough about Brian to tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, come on. Where are we going? You just got to come. Well, what are we doing? You got to come. It's just something that's changed my life. And you heard a man right here. Yeah, go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah, Jesse, why don't you stand up and see? Those two guys came because Jesse and his father-in-law right there.
Love it. Love it. So guys, you're here because someone asked you to come. And I don't think you came because you heard that Michael was doing the food. Okay? Or that Doc was going to be doing the ice cream and the root beer float. But you came because a man asked you, and you've probably seen a difference in that man's life. Because God radically changes your life when we allow him to come into our life. Like Jim. If you knew Jim before he gave his life to Jesus 4 years ago, you would think quite differently. But God radically moved in him, and I am here just to fan your guys' flame, and I'm here to choke on all your guys' dust, because God is moving right here in the Central Coast. And it's because men are willing to stand up and speak out on their love and faith in Jesus Christ. Some of you men have been to what we call M24, and there's a little saying that we say there, and I'm going to see how many of you have been there. Jesus! Okay, now some of you men heard, and you probably wonder, what the heck did those guys just say? Well, they simply said, free. Jesus has freed us. He's freed us from that past. So I'm going to say it again. Jesus!
Freedom!
Jesus!
Freedom!
Jesus!
Freedom!
Yeah, so Jesus has freed each and every one of us from the ugly, dark junk that we have had in our past. And I'm just going to share with you a little bit of my story, and then I'm going to end with a story at the end. And in between, depending on how much time we have, I'll introduce you to a couple guys. I used to think I didn't have a story. But I find now that my story is pretty rare. You see, I have a father who has 19 grandchildren and 42 great-grandchildren, and every one of them are following Jesus today.
Amen.
And why is that? You see, I don't know why God chose me to be his son, but he did. And so I was raised with a man that trusted Jesus, followed Jesus, and lived for Jesus. And what he said, he did. And if he said it, he acted it out. Because my grandmother, I didn't meet till I was in my 20s. My dad was married at 16 in Olton, Texas. Married my mom and said, we're moving to California. And you wonder, man, that's no big deal. Oh, yeah, it was. See, my dad was put on a bus at 6 years of age and sent to another town because his mother was a prostitute. My grandfather naturally was the one chasing the prostitutes. And my dad was raised by somebody that wasn't even a relative. And at 16, my dad gave his life to Christ at a tent revival. He'd never heard about Jesus. But that's when my dad said to my mom, listen, we're getting married. We're going to move to California, because as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord.
Amen.
He chose to live a life that was going to be extremely difficult because he's leaving all his family. My mom's side of the family was actually worse than my father's. And the two of them left. They left home to become one flesh. And they raised 4 boys in a godly home. We didn't have babysitters because they couldn't afford them. So we were a family that grew up knowing Jesus 24/7 and watching a man live his life out for Jesus. Why am I saying that to you? Because every one of us has that opportunity. We can draw a line in the sand today and says, as for me and my house, we're going to follow the Lord. And our house is going to be radically different. Jim's house is radically different. Okay? There's some guys in this room that have given their life to Christ. I'll introduce you to one. And Jesus wasn't in their home, but at 50-something years of age, he gave his life to Jesus, and his entire family has come to know Christ since. Why is that? That's what God's in the business of doing. How many of your lives has he radically changed? Come on. Okay. Some of you also wear a band. I wear a band, and it says something that some of you got. I sat with Jackie back there, and Jackie shared with me at the table. I didn't know Jackie. He sat down and he told me his life was radically changed at M24. That God got a hold of him, and he put this bracelet on. And the bracelet is representative of a Marine. If you ask a Marine, are you a Marine? What does he say?
You betcha.
Anybody know? Booyah! He darn right? And he screams it out. U.S. Marine, booyah! Yes, darn right I am. Proud of it. Well, the problem is when I ask you if you're a man of God, you put your head down. Yeah, you don't know my thoughts last night. You don't know my thoughts 10 minutes ago, Les. I can't really claim to be that man that God calls me to be, because I got junk in here. Well, God deals with that junk and he gets rid of it, man. It's gone. And we tend to put our heads down when someone says, are you a Christian? Ooh, I don't know. Am I in the right spot? Can I say I am? Is someone going to say, oh, you can't say that here. But we have another little saying that says, man of God? Absolutely. Wait. How many of you have a wristband on? Okay. You know the drill. Man of God. Absolutely. Yeah, we're darn proud that we're men of God. And I hope when you leave here, that somewhere down the road you'll think, man, am I proud to be a man of God? Now realize, we don't have it all together. We're on that journey to be the man that God calls us to be. I'm not saying I got it all together because I'm wearing this bracelet. What I'm saying is I'm proud to let anyone know that I love Jesus with all my heart. And he has radically changed my life. Period. Period. And how did he change my life? By giving me a father who lived his life out for Jesus, and he showed me how to live a life for Jesus. I wanted to be just like my dad. My 3 brothers wanted to be just like my dad. And if you met my brothers today, you would see clones of me. Think about your home. Who do your kids want to be like? They want to be like you, Dad. And at early age, yeah, you're their everything. And God, if you've stepped out of that line, can radically forgive you of wherever you've been and change your life radically. And it can change starting today. Mm-hmm. Now, they've asked me just to share, how did this whole thing start? Okay. Well, we started, I'm going to say, probably 11, 12 years ago. And there was 5 of us sitting in a room. Actually, I'm sorry, there was 8 of us sitting in a room. We were at a ranch similar to this, and we were at a church that didn't have a men's ministry. If you really go and check and you look at budgets of all your churches, you'll see they have a really good budget over here for women's ministry. And if you look at the men's ministry, it's usually, oh, they can pay for the pancake breakfast they're going to have. That we don't need a budget now. So nothing's budgeted, and usually nothing happens. You guys have all been in churches that are like that. And so we were there to figure out, how are we going to start this thing called a men's ministry? And we immediately said, no, we're not going to start a men's ministry. We're going to start ministering to men. We're just changing the verbiage. We're going to start ministering to men. How do you do that? You meet with them, you get real with them, you tell your true story. We're about stories. You guys are about stories. You're basically modeling what we do over in the Central Valley. We have a guy tell his story every month about how God has radically changed him. And they usually have radical stories. Mine's not so radical. Mine's abnormal. I've grown up in a home where Jesus was all I knew. I don't have a going south story. I was a virgin when I got married. The girl I fell in love with, I was in the cradle at 6 months with her. I saw her naked there, and I said, I'll take that one. And her grandma said, I think we can make that happen. I started dating her when I was 13. Only girl I've ever kissed. We were married at 19. We've been married 40 years. And it's only because I've seen a father love a mother. That was my dad. And I've seen a mother return that love by caring and loving. And my wife has had to put up with me. I got a lot of energy, and she's got a lot to keep up with. And she sometimes wonders, wow, I don't know if I can do this. But I would tell you, by the grace of God, God is moving. A friend of mine once said, find where God is moving and jump on board. Well, what I see is you guys have found that same thing out. You found where God is moving, and you guys have jumped on board. We can't explain it. We don't know why God has chosen the central part of California, the coast, and a little bit inland. But God is moving. And this has not happened in other places, guys. You guys have been around. I was just with the pastor of North Point, which is Andy Stanley's church. And actually, guys, he spent a week ago here on the Central Coast. And on Easter Sunday, their church had 66,000 people at church. Wow. He's responsible for some 28,000 men. And he looks me straight in the eye and says, how do you get 200 guys to show up to a dinner like this? I can't do that. I don't get that. He said, it must be different out here in California. I said, I don't know. We're just being real. We're telling our story, how God has radically changed us. And we're trying to live it out every day at home. So what happened with these 8 guys that met? We said, well, let's go home, and Les, would you be willing to do this effort on leading men? I said, yeah, I'll do it. I'm fine with that. Okay, what are you going to do? I said, I got a friend in Southern California. I'll call him. So I called him right then, and I said, hey, Pete, when can you come up and talk to some men? He says, well, my next opening is 3 weeks from now. Okay, 3 weeks we'll meet here. So we all said, let's see 8 of us go get 5 men, and let's tap them on the shoulders, just like John did to you, Brian, okay? And let's invite them. Let's invite them up, and we're going to have my friend talk to us about men and see what the spiritual climate is of Bakersfield. But there's some rules. We got to invite men that aren't involved in anything. The men that are, let's call them splinter Christians, the ones that sit on the pews and don't do anything, but they're sitting next to their wife and they check it off the box when they go home and said, I did that. Honey, I'm good, right? You know those guys. You might have been one time. So that's who we had to invite. They couldn't be Sunday school teachers. They couldn't be small group leaders. They just had to be ordinary men. So we thought maybe 20 guys would show out of the 40. All 40 showed. They all came. And he talked there about being the man God calls you to be. Some of you have been to M24, know what I'm referring to. We haven't changed it in those 10 years. If you come back to our M24, we'll do the same thing we did last year. Why? Because God moves. We're not changing it. And what happened is, when he gave the invitation to come forward and put one of these bracelets on and be the man God calls you to be, all 40 guys came forward. My friend kneeled me on the ground. I was humbled. Put his hand on me and said, man of God, and I repeated after him, absolutely. And I stood up, and from that day forward, the pursuit of chasing men to know Jesus has been very passionate for me. I took it serious. God must have left me here for a reason, and that was to spread his word and just share with men about Jesus. So I asked my friend, I said, when can you come back? Because we have some other men that need to hear this same message. And he says, well, 6 weeks I can come back. So the 40 of us decided, let's ask 3 guys to come. They all asked 3 guys. We had 112 guys show up 6 weeks later. Same thing happened. 100 plus men came forward, put a bracelet on, and said, I want to be the man God calls me to be. Whoa. Wow, are you kidding me? Well, when can you come back, Pete? He said, well, let me check my schedule. I can be back in 6 weeks. Okay, we'll do it again. 6 weeks later, we asked those 112 guys, go tap a guy on the shoulder, go tap Brian on the shoulder and invite him. Go tap Jackie on the shoulder and invite him. We had 220 guys show up. So, then what happened? Oh my goodness, we got to do something more than just meet up here. We got to do something down the hill. This can't just be a mountaintop high. We got to do something more. What are we going to do? I said, let's do this thing. How about we call something M6? Let's have a guy tell a story every month on a Monday night. We'll call it M6. Monday at 6, meal at 6, men at 6. That sounds good. Let's do it. So that's how we started this M6 thing. What you guys are doing. Well, guys would come. Guys would come forward afterwards and say, I want more. Whoa. Now what do we do? Guys are coming to Jesus. They're accepting Jesus. We got to give them more than, like Jim said, once a week. That's not enough. So, we said, you know what? My friend said, have you tried Rocky's material? No, who's Rocky? Rocky's the guy, my buddy in Arkansas, who wrote the Journey material. So 11 years ago, we started what I think is the biggest change that ever happened to us. And that was getting men in proximity with Jesus. Not just a one night a month time where we come out here, we sing a little bit, and we gather, but really getting men into an intimate, abiding relationship with Jesus. How do you do that? I've said it already, by being real with those men that are at your table. Today at the tables, I'm sure you had some conversation, but at these tables you get down and you find a man where he's at, and you find out that he's just like you. He struggles with the same thing as you do. And we go through a 9-month journey. Jim shared about it. And I'm really here just to share with you guys, there's a whole lot more than M6. You're going to hear someone speak from time to time up here, and you're going to be impressed with his story, or you're going to go, whoa, that was radical. I could bring you guys stories that you would just go, oh my goodness. Well, Jesus does that stuff. That's the business he's in, changing radical lives into men who follow Jesus. I mean, I'm here to say to Greg and to Michael, for you guys to set up out here and serve and give of your time, and businessmen here that say, I'm all in. What do you need? That's all in. They're doing more than just saying, hey, you want to come? No. They're opening their back pocket and saying, hey, let's do this, because that's why I'm here on earth, is to change lives. Otherwise, God would take you the day you gave your life to Jesus. How many here have given your life to Jesus? Raise your hand. You understand why you're still here? If Jesus really, if it was only about giving your life to Jesus, and then you go to heaven, you guys would all be gone. He left you here for a reason. Are we maximizing that reason? Well, my dad did. And there's guys here in this room who are doing that very same thing. And it's radical. So we started meeting, and we meet to this day every Friday at 6 a.m. and every Tuesday at 6 p.m. And we have anywhere from 100 to 200 guys show up to be in a group, sit at a table like this. The groups are anywhere from size 6 to groups size 40, depending on who the leader is. And we guide men to an intimate, abiding relationship with Jesus. And those guys go from this to this. They become close. You guys walk in here and you see some guys you know, but you're going to know these guys. These guys are going to carry your casket. And I have found my brothers and have impacted my life because I know their story. I know their real story. And so what the journey has done to change men's lives, okay, it's going deeper with Jesus. And I know Jim and I know Mike and I know Mark would love me to encourage you guys to plug in to wherever you can find an intimate, abiding relationship with Jesus. An everyday relationship, not once a month, every day. And it's going to radically change your life. You'll be screaming out, absolutely. You'll be screaming out, freeze us. Why? Because you want everyone to know. You see, for myself, I was a professional athlete at one time, and there was a time that I wasn't screaming it out because I thought it might change my relationship with the general manager or the coach. But I soon found out, no, I'm going to scream from the top of my lungs. And so I just encourage you guys to do that. Michael Sr., are you out there? Come here. Ralphie, come here. We have a couple guys here, and briefly I'm just going to ask them. Michael's the man here I shared with you. He came to Christ in his 50s. What's happened to your family?
Family is radically changed, but it started in the journey group. You know, I denied a guy 2 or 3 times asking me to M42. Told him no. Marriage in shambles. 3 boys amuck. A wife, just losing a beautiful wife I've known since I was 14 because of my selfishness and my infidelity. I showed up. I showed up the 3rd time I was asked on a Friday morning, and it's made me who I am today. My boys have all came to Christ. My marriage was restored. A business that was completely devastated. No relationship with my grandkids. House that was foreclosed on. Business done. Contractor's license taken away. All restored. But it was just showing up, you know. And I denied the guy many times, like I said, at least twice. But I showed up that 3rd time. And I was in. I surrendered all. You know, we talk about living it out. That's where it all starts. But it's about surrender. It's about finally letting go of the baggage we all have as men. For me, it was all private. I couldn't give up the things that were inside me. I thought if I gave those things up, I was done. I was literally done. I would be on the street. I wouldn't be here today. I'm a walking miracle. Me and Jimmy have a really personal, close relationship, and we could share that with you, and it'd take a long time, but it's a pretty amazing thing. You guys need to jump in. I'm just telling you, without it, I wouldn't be standing here. I think there's many guys here, I know from Bakersfield, I wouldn't be here. I literally would not be here. So invest. It changed my life. You'll hear a little bit from my oldest son, but all my boys, they were lost because I was lost. So giving it up and showing up is what it takes. Show up.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you. Junior, come on up here, wherever you're at. Rafi, come here. Okay, so he mentioned Jim. Okay, he and Jim were in a journey group together when Jim's life was torn apart when his wife left him. And the two of them met, and they found out they had similar stories. And their life radically changed. Why? Because Jesus chose to change their life. They gave it all over. Rafi, come here. Okay, this is Rafi. Rafi was in the very first journey group ever. Okay? And that was, I don't know, 10, 11 years ago. And he happened to be in my journey group. And he just had a bunch of junk happen to him. I want to even say his cars were repossessed. He was living kind of a lie. And he jumped in and joined a journey group. He heard the men's story. In fact, we came over here to the coast. We were at Cypress Ridge, and all 10 of us in the group told our stories there. And our lives began to radically change. Well, it was 4 or 5 years later, Rafi's on fire for Jesus, and he decides to move. And he moves down to Valencia. So he doesn't live in Bakersfield. He's in Valencia. He thought, no problem. So tell us what happened from there.
Well, my wife wanted to.
I'm going to hold on to the mic. I'm bigger than you, remember? Oh, yeah, but that's right. You're from the Middle East. So I'll let you hold it.
Now, when we moved to Valencia, I'm originally from Valencia, and I don't want to yell. We moved to Valencia. Bottom line is, we were not only distant an hour and a half from Bakersfield, but I wasn't going to the journey group. I mean, the guys were not around me, and I was sharing earlier too. It's accepting Christ in my heart and wanting to serve Him and follow Him. But I needed the brothers that I was around. I needed this tremendously, and so that was distant, you know. So that was for 4 years, for 5 years, and just things shifted, you know. I mean, obviously, again, my walk with the Lord was there. But things were starting to change in my marriage. Obviously, to me, the biggest thing is mentoring. When I have the right people around me and following them. So when I was with Les, watching what he did, I do a lot of stuff today. I would have to say, and if anyone knows Les, would go, "Oh, that's what Les does. That's what Les does," because that's what I do. I copy that, and so I was following a man that was following Christ, but when I was in Valencia, that wasn't the case. So things started shifting. I don't know how far or where you want me to go with it. But.
So basically, you're on the freeway in Bakersfield, living your life in fast lane for Jesus. You moved to Valencia, and you kind of took an off-ramp and said, I can do it on my own right now, and it didn't work out, right?
Not at all.
Yeah, so guys, I just want to share that that's all of us right there. We take off-ramps, and it's hard to get back on. Well, Rafi today is back on. Okay, why? We have a saying that we are the average. We are the average of the 6 men that we spend the most time with. So think about that, guys. Who are the 6 men that you spend it with? Think for just a second. Come up with 6 names? Okay, how many said Jesus is one of those? Nobody? Oh, a few. Okay. So if you're spending time with Jesus every day, He's one of those. That really helps your average, by the way. So those of you that didn't raise your hand, reconsider. Make Him one of those 6. Because essentially what happened is Ralphie got away from 6 men that he was hanging with. And his walk with Jesus started to fade a little bit. And so I really encourage you, plug in, stay plugged in, get involved. So Michael, where are you at, Junior? Come on. Michael's home was a mess. You heard his story from his dad. I'll let Michael share with you what happened. These guys don't know what I'm asking them. They're just here in the audience, and they didn't know I was going to call them up. So don't think this was planned, but this is life. So Michael's life was, I'll let him tell you. Where were you before you came to Jesus?
I was working all the time, away from my family, away from my kids. Kids didn't even know me. I'd come home and just walk right by them and go sit on the couch and watch the game or basically do whatever I wanted to do. Didn't have a relationship with them or my wife. Was drinking all the time, verbally abusive to my wife. Just wasn't showing her the respect that she deserved. Wasn't showing my kids the love they deserved. And it was basically all about myself.
Okay, so one day your wife decided to leave you and say, I'm out. And here your dad had given his life to Jesus, and he's a man that was pretty hard. He was a coach, and he was pretty strong and bold. And so he comes to your house, and you're thinking he's going to beat you up, and what did he do?
I've said it before, I think my dad has cried about 2 times before he gave his life to Christ. So he was coming over, and I was a little worried what he was going to say or what he was going to do. And basically he came over and he told me 3 things. He said, Jesus is real, Jesus loved you, and he died for you, and he doesn't want this for your family. And he gave me a hug, and that's all he said. And then he walked away, and that changed my heart and who I am today, because a man that I saw was hard and only the disciplinarian in my family, and he broke down and showed me that he truly cared about me and loved me, and told me he loved me, and tells me that to this day, and cries pretty much every day. So.
Yeah, he does cry pretty much every day, huh, Michael? Yeah, God can do that. And so what I love about this story is Michael was just basically doing what my dad did. My dad did it at 16. Michael did it how old? 50 what?
49.
Yeah, 49. See, just like I said, 50-something. Yeah, so God can radically change each and every one of us if we're willing. And the message I want to share with you guys is here's 4 of us lives who's radically been changed. No different than your guys's. Okay? Michael shared with you, he was basically an alcoholic and just getting through. Well, today Michael has stepped up in many ways. And Michael I get to meet with every Tuesday. He's also in a couples group at my house on Monday nights. On Tuesday we meet at lunch and I mentor this young man. And we're talking about pouring into the next generation for Jesus. And some of you guys out there, as I look, that got gray hair like me, are we doing that? Because this generation that's behind us needs Jesus badly. You guys agree with that?
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah, they do. So what are we doing about it? Well, I'm sorry, guys, but I take it serious. If I'm the devil, I'm going to be shooting at the guys like this guy who's turned from alcoholism to Jesus. I want him back. And so he's got a target on his back. And so we need to be pouring into those young men so that they're going to replace us when this M6 needs a bigger spot than this ranch. Because you guys are radical about Jesus. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Yeah. So I end with this story. George Thomas, a pastor in New England, one day decided I'm going to get up early and I'm going to walk to church and I'm going to get ready early and just spend some time in prayer. On the way, he sees this little boy. This little boy's carrying a bird cage. I meant to bring my bird cage and set it up here. But he had a bird cage, and this little boy had 3 birds in it. The birds were ragged. They were ugly. And George says to the little boy, hey, what are you doing with those birds? He says, oh, I'm going to take them home. I'm going to play with them. I'm going to pull their feathers out. I'm going to poke their eyes. And I'm going to have all kinds of fun with them. Man, I'm going to have a great day. The pastor looks at him and says, well, then what are you going to do with them? He says, oh, I got some cats. And I'm going to let them out one at a time and let the cats get them. Really? He says, yeah, that's what I do. Pastor says, hey, how much do you want for those birds? Little boy said, you don't want these birds. They don't even sing. They're ugly, they're wet, they're awful. You don't want these birds. They're no good. How much do you want for the birds? Little boy looks at him and goes, $10. Pastor says, I'll take them. Pulls out $10 and gives it to him. And the boy runs as fast as he can. Can't believe somebody gave him $10 for 3 cruddy old birds. Pastor takes the bird cage, walks down the little spot where there's a tree and some grass, and he opens the door of the cage, nudges the birds, and they fly away. He freed them. Well, that Sunday morning he had a bird cage on the pulpit. Everyone walked in and went, what the heck is that? What's that up there for? So he tells this story. Satan was with Jesus. And he had just come out of the garden. And Satan said, yeah, I got him. I threw all kinds of tricks out there. They fell for them all. And I got them. Man, I'm going to mess with these folks. I've been messing with them. I'm going to continue messing with all these folks. He says, I'm going to teach them how to get married. I'm going to teach them how to get divorced. That's what I'm going to do. Jesus is listening. He says, man, I'm going to teach them how to get hooked on porn. That's going to be really good. Watch what happens to all these men. He says, I'll get them. I'm going to teach them how to scream and yell at their kids. I'm going to teach them how to cheat on their wives. Man, it's good. They're all falling for it too. And Jesus says to him, he says, then what are you going to do with them? He says, I'll probably kill them. Jesus says to him, how much you want for those guys? He says, you don't want these guys. They're worth nothing. They're not of any value. They're no good. They're junk. They're filled with heartache and pain. Their lives are awful. They're messed up. You don't want these guys. Jesus says, how much do you want for them? Satan says, you're serious, huh? He says, yeah, how much you want? Satan says, all right. I want your blood. I want your sweat. I want your tears. I want your life. What does Jesus say? Done. I want those guys. I want guys who got ugly past, been struggling with everything possible. If you'll be honest with me, how many going through struggles right now, junk, that's invading your life and keeping you from a walk with Jesus that he really wants to have? Yeah, we all got that. How do we get rid of that stuff? Jesus already did it. That's the part we forget. How many times did Jesus die? Wait, how many times did he die? How many times did he need to die? Wait, how many? Once. He only needed to die once. Some of us live life like we think he needs to die every day. He died for how many of our sins? All. Well, at the end of that message, the pastor took his bird cage and walked out. He set us free. As I turn the mic over to Mike as he comes forward, I just want to encourage you guys. We and I say myself, I have a hard time just looking out and seeing what God has done here. He wants each and every one of our junk. He wants my junk. Why? Because he'll transform it and make it new. And so guys, I'm so proud to be able to stand in front of you and see a guy like Jim and Mark and Mike and see you men coming here. And God has bigger plans for you. It's not just a Monday night, once a week thing. It's an everyday relationship that he wants to restore with you. And he can do it. You heard 3 guys who he did it in their life. Jackie told me, Jackie, raise your hand right there. Jackie told me how God radically changed his life. And he told me, I've been on fire ever since October. God can do that. So thank you. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, John. Thank you for tapping Brian. And I got to meet Brian. And so, Mike, I'll give it to you. Thank you for letting me come and share. Love you.
Hey, Laterno, Michael Jr., Michael Sr., come on up here. Rafi, Jim, Mark, come up here. There's an anointing on people who are courageous enough to take their mask off and say, Jesus, here I am. Here's who I am. Now change me. Do what you want to do in my life. And we've done that. The men that I've taken my mask off in front of, my wife said to me about a month ago, she goes, if anything ever happened to you, those are the men that I would call, because they love you for who you are. And I want these men to pray for you, just like I've had people pray for me. I was afraid, I was ashamed that you might judge me, that you wouldn't like me anymore because I had dirty, ugly things in my life, and yet it was another man that helped me find Jesus. And so some of you, you go get your root beer float, and those of you, come on up here. Ask these guys to pray for you. We want to pray with you. Pray with you. We want to minister to you so that you can go minister to others and be a shoulder tapper. So we're going to just sing a song. Just come on up here. This is a time of ministry, or root beer floats, whatever you want it to be. Because we ain't going to judge anyone. We just love you. Thanks for coming tonight. We'll see you next month.